Vitek here from Metal Wani, and with us today we have Alex Arian of Despised Icon. Welcome back, my friend.
You pronounced it well. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I'm sure this must be, let me say, a super tough time for you guys to wait for the release date. I mean, Beast comes out in 2 weeks. Definitely a proud moment for you after a long time.
Definitely, man, and it's been a long wait. I mean, our previous record, last time we put out a record was in 2009.
2009.
So it's been 7 long years already. And no, man, I mean, we didn't know what to expect, to be honest. Often, bands get stuck into that situation where people go to concerts and all they want to hear is their Black album or their
Right.
Rust in Peace or stuff like that, and they aren't necessarily very receptive to the new shit. But in our case, as far as like our first two singles are concerned, Beast, the title track, and
And
The
the aftermath.
Aftermath, our second single, the response has been overwhelming, and it's good to see like the diehard fans, coming out of the woodwork, coming out to these reunion shows and still being around and breaking mosh retirement and still being so supportive, after years, after in certain cases after a decade, but it's also good to see like those fresh faces and people that got into our band after we originally broke up and people that are just getting to know us or seeing us for the first time live. It's interesting, man. It's kind of surprising, to be honest, but I mean, I'll take it.
Definitely. Now, like you said, 7 years since the last album. Obviously, you guys have grown as individuals, as musicians, and here we are with Beast, coming out in 2 weeks. How is this entire writing, recording process, keeping in mind that you guys are writing an album after 7 years? So obviously, fans would have a lot of expectations from this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, that us, taking that huge step back was definitely beneficial. We were inactive for like, over 5 years,
5 years.
and like that was definitely beneficial to the band. We were a little burnt out from constantly touring, nonstop, and granted, we were lucky to have such a strong fan base and to be given that opportunity, but we had reached a point in our lives where we wanted to try out different things, stuff that had nothing to do with music, start families and whatnot. And that was our mindset leaving the band. But now that, the kids are a bit older and my boys have a bit more freedom and also just us with all this free time, realizing how music played,
Important.
how music is a huge part of our lives and how the
Right.
Spies Icon played a pivotal role in our lives and how we've experienced so much of this world through this band. Everybody realized how we all genuinely missed it and how lucky we were to have that outlet, that creative outlet. And so when the time came to play those reunion shows and to see how receptive fans were, like I just mentioned, that was like an ego boost. That was definitely a motivating factor in us, reuniting, and also the proper kick in the ass that we needed to, get this thing started again. But that being said, it had been a while since we had written anything, 7 years, like we said. So we didn't know what to expect. We didn't want to have to deal with, any expectations or pressures from the industry and this and that. We kept everything low key. We kept everything secret. We ultimately those factors often are somewhat negative in a sense that they can, sort of hinder or suffocate that creative aspect of an artist's life or
Right.
whatever. And so it felt good to, write for the pure pleasure of writing. We didn't know if we would come up with enough material for a full length. We were like, maybe let's do an independent EP, something, just set our, you know, we were very reasonable with our goals at first, but next thing you know, I guess, Eric and I and Alex Grind, the writing team, us three, I guess, it's just like riding a bike, and next thing you know, we had a full length, and
Unstoppable.
then yeah, definitely, man. And taking that huge step back, as I keep mentioning, was good, was beneficial to the band in the sense that we isolated what we liked the most and what we liked the least in the Spies Icon musically. And so in my case, I'm a fan of the older material, stuff off Consumed by Your Poison, stuff off the the healing process, sorry, that's a bit more, slam, mosh, traditional death metal oriented,
Right.
but, fans of our last two record deals of Modern Man, Day of Mourning, people that are more into like the fast,
Hmm.
technical aspect of Despised Icon, those fans will be served as well. So when the time came to do this record, I feel like it's, simply the best of Despised Icon, and the title to that is Beast, quite simply.
Definitely, man, definitely. And it's got that old school vibe, which was back in the day when you guys tried on Healing and even on the Modern Man. So you guys have
Hmm.
maintained that, but at the same time, as the technology has advanced, the modern side, the modern production of it has come into the picture. But your identity, the purpose of the band to write the music is still there. So I'm sure that was one of the most important factor you guys considered when you were writing the album.
Definitely, and that's like an interesting point you just mentioned, because I remember at some point, let's say 2007, 8, 9, I feel like a lot of bands, including us, stepped into that trap of, putting out overproduced records.
Hmm.
Everything was just so precise, so digital, and you lose a bit of the magic or energy, in a recording like that. In retrospect, us revisiting our older material, and so when the time came to do this record, we sort of like focused more on the vibe of every take rather than just precision and whatnot. So it's not exactly perfect, but it's a lot more faithful to our live sound. There isn't
True.
like 7-part guitar harmonies and layer after layer after layer of vocals. It's very faithful to our live sound. What you hear at a Despised Icon concert is what you hear on a Despised Icon CD, especially with Beast. And the guitar tones are a lot less digital, real heads, real amps, real cabs, and,
Hmm.
and and same for the drums. The drums on Day of Mourning are almost, they sound almost like a drum machine. Revisiting that record and listening to it now, I wish the drums would sound more organic, and
Right.
same for the guitars, and that's something I feel as though we achieved on this record. The vocal takes, certain words you don't hear the pronunciation perfectly. Certain parts I feel as though I could have perhaps done better, but all in all, it's real, it's human, and as a whole, I feel like the record definitely benefited from that. It's time to take a step back from how, from that. Well, anyways, as far as we're concerned, that's our mentality. We want
True.
everything to be a bit more accurate, an accurate representation of our band. So there
Absolutely.
it is. There it is.
There it is, definitely. And you guys have, this wonderful skill of that the signature traditional death metal formula has been there. I mean, you guys maintain that, yet those amazing breakdowns, which I, as a fan, embrace, is something where you guys have combined really well. You maintain a great balance, in terms of, the maintaining the traditional sound, also the breakdown. So I don't want to say you guys are trying to redesign the wheel, but I'm sure you guys tried your best to maintain the balance in terms of your formula, as well as maintaining what you guys probably love individually as musicians.
I mean, thank you for starters, and it's important to just you know uh, travel back in time and understand our mindset when we started Despise Icon in 2001, 2002. Back then we had already, all of us, we grew up in the death metal scene in the 90s. Being teenagers, smoking weed, having a couple beers, and going to death metal shows, and we had reached a point where we were starting Despise, and all of us had been in death metal bands prior to Despise, and we were
Mhm.
like, all right, what can we do to make this a little different, something, interesting for ourselves, so that we're not, just doing the same band all over again, like our previous bands. So that's when we started, adding some other influences, like, some of the grindcore shit we used to listen to, some of the hardcore stuff that we still listen to,
Right.
and that's how our music came about. And it's important to understand that back then there was no deathcore scenes, there were no deathcore bands, and
True.
and us, touring in that environment. Our first tours with Morbid Angel, Behemoth, Suffocation, Deicide, Immolation, Cryptopsy, Vader, Aborted, so on and so forth. Like, there were no deathcore bands back then, and it was a different. Our music wasn't received like it is right now. Back
No.
then,
Mhm.
traditional death metal fans sort of saw that the breakdown elements in our music as something negative.
Yeah.
Some of the guys would call us emo back then, like, we're not fucking emo. But that being said, whatever.
Right.
To each their own. But I don't know. Next thing you know, a couple of years went by, and then deathcore became a thing, and then bands like Job for a Cowboy and Suicide Silence and
Yeah.
Carnifex and Chelsea Grin, they all popped out, and and became massive and huge and all of that. And that's how the scene started out as far as like what we play. But I feel like a lot of those bands don't have the same roots as we do, and a lot of those bands were influenced by deathcore and not a mixture of death metal and hardcore.
That's right.
And I feel like that's where that's how we achieved our own sound and our I feel like that's how we stand out. And you listen to a lot of those deathcore bands that survived, because at some point it just, that scene got saturated. It became a trend, and like every trend, everybody just hops on that bandwagon, and next thing you know, there's all these bands trying to do it, and whatever. It's just music. Everybody can do whatever they want. It's important to keep things light, and just enjoy things for what they are. But I know that a lot of those bands have died down, and the ones that have survived, you look at what the current trend, gent, and I feel like a lot of those deathcore bands, and no disrespect, I feel like a lot of them are ultimately gent bands now. They dropped, they got rid of those blast beats and the those extreme elements in their music,
and
now
it's focused on the odd time signatures now.
Yeah, and that's sick, man. Don't get me wrong. Like it's a funny thing. We're on Nuclear Blast. I remember in '97 or something like that. I remember picking up a Nuclear Blast compilation called "Death Is Just the Beginning," and on there were there was a track by a band named Meshuggah. A track that predated Destroy, Erase, Improve. And I was like, what the fuck is this music? This is so good, and
right.
Then Meshuggah became Meshuggah, they're humongous. They're so good, and they're so influential. And, me starting out as a drummer, I'm definitely into all those odd time signatures, but, I don't know. I'll just let Meshuggah be Meshuggah,
and Despised Icon be
I'll just do exactly.
Right. I got to tell you, this Beast, is an album that's basically that needed to be released. I mean, let me be honest with you. With the current state of deathcore scene, if you keep that in mind, and the new bands are just ripping out the same old style. Some are even trying to do something else, but something was required, a catalyst to reassure the power. Or let me say, they reassure the madness, and that's where Beast comes in. And I'm sure once it's out and fans get to feel it, this is how exactly they are going to feel, because an album like Beast was needed at this point of time.
Thank you, man. I feel like I remember 10 years back, death metal became a thing again, and it got super popular. And I remember touring with Deicide, and there was 1,000 people every night, and now they probably play for a third of that. It's not as death metal, unfortunately, isn't as popular as it used to be, I feel. But to me, that's my childhood. That's the stuff that got me into music. That's a huge part of my life, and for us it was important to try and to the best we can try and bring it back, or at least show where we come from, and that's how Beast came about. And we're all in our mid to late 30s now, and you would expect us, this is our 5th record, to sort of slow down a notch, become more commercially accessible and whatnot, and like a lot of bands that have matured and reached that point. But I feel like we did a full 180, and Beast is more extreme than ever before. Dude, there's some of our fastest songs on this new record. But that being said, I don't want to be negative in the sense that it's hard to come up with new shit nowadays. We are talking, we talk about bandwagons and people doing playing music that's already pre-existing. But you can't come up. I mean, what are we going to invent next? Alien metal? At some point, it's there are certain limitations,
Yes.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing to sound like one band or another. We have influences from a bunch of other bands, so it's important. There's so much hate, online nowadays, and on message boards and stuff like that, and it's important to just take music for what it is. It's just a form of expression. It's just art. Let's just, keep it light, enjoy it. If you don't like this band, don't listen to it.
Right.
Don't waste all your time and energy on hating a band. Just invest that time into something positive, something that you do enjoy. So I don't want my what I'm saying to be misinterpreted as
Right.
as hate or me dissing other bands, because I'm also in another band called Obey the Brave, and we often get compared to, I don't know, The Ghost Inside or Stick to Your Guns and band like that predated Obey the Brave. And it's a hard landscape, to try and make a name for yourselves when you have certain similarities to other bands. So it's important to keep that in mind as well, and just let music be fun. That's the main thing. I feel like a lot of people lost sight of that.
Indeed, I totally get that. And vocals on this album are insane. I mean, the Pig Squeals are back, and I'm sure fans are something that they've been waiting for. And the moment, in fact, the second video which came out, the Aftermath, I was just listening to the album, and there's some certain interludes with a couple of I think 1 minute or 30 seconds, just a kind of a break needed probably to unleash hell. But one song in general was Bad Vibes. And the squeal in that was insane, and that's what I'm sure a lot of fans miss that. And for you guys, you two being you guys put your everything into vocals. Anything different you guys tried this time in the studio as compared to the past 4 albums?
Yeah, we tried to. There are like certain vocal parts that we nickname Behemoth vocals, because there's like an older record from Behemoth, I forget which, but it's like just laced with vocal layers, and it just sounds like a behemoth, like a beast, like a monster. And so we nicknamed those Behemoth vocals, where Steve does the highs, I do the mids, and he does the lows, all three all put together. So we try to put a bit more of those on this record. I feel like it's so in your face and so violent, and I love it. And overall, we tried to alternate a bit more. We're two vocalists, so instead of him doing his part and me doing my part, we try to alternate a bit more.
Right.
That's definitely something we've been doing. And also, you mentioned the Pig Squeals and all that. That's something that we dropped on the previous record, on Day of Mourning. That's the only record that doesn't have Pig Squeals, and the reason for our reasoning behind that is like, in 2007, 8, 9, and it reached a point where deathcore was the trend, and that's what everybody was doing.
Right.
And we were like, yo, I mean, I don't know. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but we felt as though it was so saturated and that became the norm. So we were like, you know what? We're one of the bands that brought it to the table and made that shit popular. But we want to keep our individuality, in our I don't know. So I guess we dropped those, but that being said, deathcore isn't cool anymore, and good. That way we can go back to doing our thing and doing our sound, and so we brought those back. Some bands, some fans love them, some fans hate them, but I don't care.
It is
I love
what
them,
it is,
and it is what it is, and that's that. And but that being said, it's not it's on half of the song, so it's still done, but within reason, and we try not to overdo it either. But thank you for mentioning Bad Vibes. That song was a bit of a change of pace for us. We've been very vocal about acknowledging our death metal roots in the past, but there is a core element to Despised Icon. Bands like Madball, bands like Biohazard, Hatebreed. Those are bands that have influenced us a lot. Even Crowbar to a certain extent, and Obituary. They're not like all fast technical blast beats and all that. There's a lot of groove to Obituary, and a lot of current hardcore bands are influenced by bands like Obituary, Entombed, and that was like the Sepultura, Chaos AD. There wouldn't be metalcore without Sepultura, Chaos AD. That is a pivotal record, and so that was our mindset writing the song Bad Vibes. And I feel like those old school, early mid '90s vibes are really present in that song, and that will actually be our third and last single for Beast. We just recorded a music video for that, and it's going to come out in about a week or two. And we decided to back in the 90s there was this show on television on Music Plus, which is like the equivalent to MTV in
Headbangers
America.
Ball.
Yeah, exactly. But back when those channels actually played music videos and music, and not just fucking Hulk Hogan and dumb shows. But anyway, like Hulk Hogan is kind of tight. I feel like I probably offended my bass player there because he's a huge Hulk Hogan fan. But anyways, back when it wasn't like a channel all about reality shows and Jersey Shore and all that. Back when it was about the music. Long story short, there was this show called Solid Rock here in Canada on Music Plus, and they would play all those old school metal and death metal videos, stuff from Megadeth and Sepultura, Arise, and Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead, On the Bleeding from Cannibal Corpse, and that's how a lot of my friends and I got exposed to metal, thrash metal, death metal, and that was our mindset writing this song, but it was also our mindset recording the music video for that. So for inspiration, we use old Sepultura videos, old Biohazard videos, old Pantera videos, stuff that's not done nowadays, and we're trying to give that song visually and sonically that old school vibe, and I think it's gonna come across properly. There's probably gonna be certain fans that will be like, yo, Bad Vibes is so simple, it's not, technical. No, it's not. That wasn't the intention, but our intention behind Beast as a whole, this record, was to have a lot more variety. So you have more straightforward slam mosh songs like Bad Vibes, but you have like the very technical songs like Inner Demons with lots of like riffs and odd time signatures and technicality, and then you have songs like Grind Forever that are just straight up fast BPMs, one of the fastest songs we ever wrote. So it's important to keep that in mind and not interpret every single as being just like the only representation of what this record could be. So my advice would be just listen to the whole record once. If you like it, cool. If you don't, but just give it a chance.
Definitely, man, definitely. We were talking about the deathcore bands. I don't know whether you heard the new Whitechapel album, and you got to give it to the guy Phil for trying out some clean vocals on this, which we have never heard Whitechapel doing in the past. So probably one of the only few bands that survived the deathcore scene is Whitechapel, and it's good to see Phil trying to do something which hasn't been done. So It's cool that bands like Despised Icon are not trying to overdo things. Instead, you are again getting back to what you're known for, because when you stopped it, like you said, it was too much. Now you're coming back, but one aspect of it really, impressed me was the song. I don't know how to pronounce. It's a French title called Drapeau Noir, I guess.
Yeah, Drapeau Noir.
Drapeau Noir.
Translate Drapeau Noir.
Drapeau Noir. You are throwing melody in that song.
Yeah, that title translates to Black Flag, so it's more of a social political song. We don't dabble a lot in that realm, but it's important to stand up for what you believe for, and that's what that song is all about. Regardless of what your beliefs are, regardless of whether they're popular or not, if that's who you are, then you should stand by it.
Definitely.
But that song is one of the most fastest songs of the record, but it's also a bit more melodic than what we're normally used to. We mentioned a lot of old school bands, but a record that I'm particularly fond of that's not that old would be Unhaloed by the Black Dahlia Murder, which are some of our favorite touring buddies. We've shared a lot of good moments with them, and I feel like that song, it might be a little reminiscent of melodic aspects like that. And we grew up listening to a lot of Scandinavian metal, like At the Gates, Slaughter of the Soul. Oh my God, still to this day, one of the best records, a masterpiece. Even like Dark Tranquility, The Gallery, The Mind's Eye, like that older shit, In Flames, The Jester Race, stuff like that is it's like
inspiring.
Yeah, man, it's epic, and that was our mindset writing that song in particular.
Awesome, man. It's good to hear. What are the plans of taking this album live? I'm sure that's something which is the next step after the release, is to take it live. So any plans been made in terms of touring?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we just got back from Europe about a month ago. Did a lot of festivals there in that run was great. Right now we're back home in Canada. We just did Rockfest. We're doing other festivals like Heavy Montreal, you know, the cool shit in this neck of the woods. In September, we're going back to Japan. In October, we're going back to America. That tour is not announced yet, and unfortunately we can't do the whole tour, but we are doing a portion of that tour, and it's going to be massive. Awesome. And yeah, definitely looking forward to going back to America. And you know, we're already in discussions, you know, about going back to Australia and Latin America earlier next year. And you know, slowly but surely we're going to get this this world tour on the road, and we're going to make it happen. That being said, you know, as I said, we're a bit older now. A lot of my boys have, you know, on average 2 kids each. A lot of you know, so right now we're just trying to balance the family obligations, the work obligations back home, because everybody needs to provide. You know, we got to be serious about this shit. You know, you can't mess with you know, the family. So that's definitely a priority for us. But the band is also a priority to us. So we're just trying to make the best of both worlds happen and achieve balance. Balance being the key word. So we're never going to be, well, I can't say never, but for the time being, we can't get back to being like a full-time touring band, you know, being on tour 9 months out of the year like we used to be. But that being said, you know, whenever it is possible, we will make it a point to come your way. So slowly but surely, you're going to see a lot more U.S. dates be announced. Granted, it probably won't be a month or 2 at a time. It'll probably be like a weekend or a week at a time. But eventually, we'll make it your way. You know, to be honest, like I'm a little bummed. We turned down Summer Slaughter, and this year they have Cannibal Corpse and Nile, and we
Revocation.
We toured with Revocation as well. They're sick, and you know you know, I'm definitely bummed that we couldn't do that tour. It would have been fun, but you know, we got to stay realistic with you know, everything that's going that's happening back home. But we're America is definitely going to be one of our priorities. That's for sure, because you know, we're from Canada, and we are from Canada, but you know, the bulk of Despised Icons touring was in America, and that's where we got, you know, our first shot and our first strong fan base, and it's important for us to give back to the fans that have been faithful for all that time.
Definitely, man. I would like to conclude the interview by asking you to define the sound of the beast in just one sentence.
We had this saying, hold on, I'm just going to say it. We're keeping it brutal, straightforward. That's it.
There you go, man. Thanks, Alex. You know, a great chat with you. You know, I look forward to see you guys live. Never had an opportunity to see Despised Icon, and would be great to see you towards States, you know, very soon. Good luck with the release, and yeah, just have fun, my friend.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for taking the time. Good chat, and yeah, man, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
All the best. Later.